Welcome everyone to the Haydon Podcast. We are your hosts, Rishi Aurora,
Tanvi Masrani,
and Ella Smith-Warwick. As always, this episode contains sensitive topics and advise that people who are 15 and over listen. And if you would like to discuss any issues regarding the topic and this episode, please contact the safeguarding team or talk to your form teacher.
So today we'll be discussing the topic of exam stress, and it's especially important because coming up are mocks as well as our final exams for people in year 11 and 13. And with the mocks and the situation we're in, this can cause a lot of anxiety for many young people. And it doesn't really affect people in one singular way, like a lot of issues. It affects us all in different ways dependent on the person and on anything that's happening in their lives. For example, some people may start to feel anxious or depressed, and it can impact sleeping and eating habits, as well as so many other things in their lives, such as their social behaviour.
So I know we've all personally been through a lot of exam stress because obviously we've sat mocks for year 11, we've had a variety of tests in class, and we've also been through GCSE exams, which I think was something ridiculous, like 26 papers within a few weeks. So I was just wondering, how have you guys had your own personal experiences with it?
So for me, I remember GCSEs because, like, compared to now, it was an insane amount of papers within such a short period of time. It was only like, I think my papers were all within the span of like 2.5 weeks. And so just having to cram all this knowledge that I'd learned over the span of like 2 years into 2 weeks, I found really stressful. But like at the end of the day, you aren't the only one who's going through it because it's national. GCSEs are a national exam. So you have to understand everyone's going through it, and therefore like everyone else knows how you're feeling. So for me, talking to my friends about issues like this and stress and stuff, just being able to, not even if they're giving me advice, just being able to vent about it to someone, I found was incredibly helpful for me.
Yeah, I especially found talking to teachers about my exam stress really helped. Especially mocks, I struggled a lot with like panic attacks before exams, and it just, when it got to the real ones, I felt just so overwhelmed, like I couldn't do them. Like I went to them and I'm like, I can't do this, and I just have a breakdown about it. And then having teachers support there really helped me just calm down and just figure it all out. And also having like a schedule really helped me, having a revision timetable and knowing what I needed to do for each exam and when. It just made my head clear a bit, because I'm like, okay, it's not that like mad rush of having to figure out what you're doing that night for the next day. So I found that really helpful.
No,
I definitely agree.
And I think, like, for me personally, I know I was literally on FaceTime to Ella like every night before each exam, not like talking or anything, but we just revised together. And even though it was in silence, just like having someone there and having that comfort of someone who's going through the same thing as you. And we did pretty much the same subjects, so we were both experiencing the same levels of stress.
Subjects.
I think that really helped me. And also, I pretty much cried to my mum most of the nights, to be honest with you. And I know I should, maybe it was a bit much, but that was me personally, because I can't deal with exam stress. I've now learnt to cope with it, but at that point I really struggled with it. But I think just letting your feelings out, like if you're feeling really stressed and you want to have a cry, because honestly you'll feel so much more lighter for it. And definitely, like Ella said, like sticking to a routine, because I personally, when I'm stressed, I really avoid things, so I'll like put it off to the last minute. But I think what exams actually did was I made myself a strict timetable of, okay, maybe not necessarily like how long I do, but I want to get through these topics for this subject today, and that way I managed to work my way through all the content. And I think just having that routine and not leaving things to the last minute minimizes your stress a lot.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I also think that going along with what you've both said about giving yourself a timetable, you should be strict about it, but at the same time, don't make every single day, every free hour you have just strictly done for work. Always make sure that at least once a day, even if it's just like 10-15 minutes, you put that time aside for yourself, for doing something you enjoy. Because I found for me that worked, because I know for my subject, I was trying to cram everything in, but then I would always set aside half an hour in which I would go do some baking, take my dog for a walk, read, or just literally just nap. Having a half-hour nap in between during your revision is the best thing I found helped me, because it's allowing my brain a rest to like process all the information I've done and just like start over for what I'm going to do again. And it's just like that short amount of relaxation after doing, say, like 2 hours of work and then a half-hour relaxation, and then just doing that on repeat, it helps so much more than just doing, say, like on a Saturday, 5 hours straight of revision, then an hour's break, and then more work in the evening until you're up at like 1 in the morning the next day because you've been doing all this work.
No, definitely. And I think even just like something like keeping a good sleeping schedule, like staying up late and cramming, is scientifically proven it won't go into your head, and like you're just stressing yourself out even more. So if you get an early night's sleep and get that rest, your brain actually has the power to function the next day. And if you want to get up a bit early, like an hour before, and do some revision, then that would actually be a lot more effective rather than staying up and trying to cram it all in. And I think naturally it is a lot harder to sleep during exams. I mean, some people sleep more than ever, some people sleep a lot less, but just try and stay in that routine with your sleeping schedule as well, because that can really help.
Also, going along with that point, have breakfast before your exams. That is the most important thing, because I know for some of my exams, I would go in on an empty stomach because I felt too stressed to eat. Even if you literally just have a cereal bar, or I would just have a coffee or something to fill your stomach up, because going in on an empty stomach, your mind will be distracted, you won't be able to think clearly. Even if you just have a piece of fruit before you're about to go into your exam, at least you're lining your stomach with something. It's just so important to at least have something before your exam, and drink plenty of water to keep yourself hydrated. You're allowed to go to the toilet during your exams. You need to stay hydrated. That's one of the most important things I found when doing my exams.
I would go into the exam, if I hadn't had breakfast, my stomach would just be rumbling the whole time, and I'd look around like, can people hear this? But it is really important to have breakfast or something before your exam.
Yeah, and I think going on what Tammy said earlier about the whole late nights thing, that is probably, for me, I found that was probably the worst thing that I did during my exams, was my sleep schedule. To this day, my sleeping habits are terrible because of how I would be sleeping during my year 11 mocks. Like, my friends know about when I wake up and things like that, and it's quite weird. I would definitely really heavily try to influence people to have an early night. It's the most important thing. And even if you hate yourself for it, waking up earlier in the morning to revision is so much better and more beneficial than leaving it to the last minute at night. It's so much better for you.
Yeah, and I think also just taking don't revise and then go to bed. Like, take even if it's 10-15 minutes to just read a book or scroll through TikTok or just do something that you find enjoyable for 15 minutes. Just take that time to relax your brain, kind of desensitize yourself from it, separate yourself from the exams for those 15 minutes so you can get some sleep and you're not overthinking and worrying about what's going to happen the next day, especially when you have 2 exams. I know when you have more than one subject in a day, it is extra stressful, let alone one. I know for mock sometimes they cram it in so you have 3 exams in a day. How is it physically possible to be able to go through that? But just try and do those things so that you're ready for the next day.
Definitely. And make sure you plan ahead. So don't leave all your revisions to the last minute, because I know I'm guilty of that 100%. And it doesn't help, because you'll come out of the exam, you're like, oh, I think I've done really well. But then you might need that knowledge later on. So say for your mocks, you just crammed it and then didn't revise anymore until it was coming up to your real exams. You're not going to remember it all. So make sure that you keep refreshing your knowledge so that you don't forget it all.
There was this video I watched about revision strategies, and one of them actually said, say we have exams in July, if we start our revision now and do the bulk of our revision now, practically take notes, flashcards, whatever you do to revise, do almost as much of it as you can now. And leading up to your exams, every time you set time aside to do revision, if you slowly do less and less and less, although you're not doing the same amount, the theory states that you're actually able to remember it more, because it's not so much revising, it's more recalling from all the revision you did in the past, and that actually helps you remember it in the future. So if you do majority of your revision months before your actual exams, and then do slow amounts of recall leading up to the exams, it will actually be a lot more beneficial with revision, and that will take off of your mind of having to stress out about oh my god, I haven't made any notes, I haven't done any revision, because you've done all your revision. You just need to go over it, maybe test yourself a bit, do some exam practice, and that will really help with the exam stress as well.
And I think the earlier you find revision techniques that work for you, the better it is, because like I know year 11 mocks is what kind of helped me personally to get into some good revision techniques, and I still use those today, like for example just doing exam questions. But if you keep those in practice, you know what works for you. Even just trying different things, if you find what works for you, you're going to be less stressed because you actually know how to revise. You can go into the exam being confident, knowing that you've done all the preparation you wanted to.
I would also say that just because in the mocks you get either a really good grade or a really bad grade, that doesn't mean that's what you're going to get in your GCSEs. Because I know with certain subjects in my mocks, I didn't do too good and I got so stressed out for their GCSEs. Whereas on the flip side, for some of my mocks, I did brilliantly and I became quite complacent. So I would say try not to get stressed out about like, oh, how am I going to do better in my mocks now? Or how am I going to try and keep up this grade that my teachers and my family and my friends all think I'm going to get? Just think at the end of the day, not whatever they think about you doesn't matter. It's just yourself. You have to think, what am I capable of? Not what do my teachers think I'm capable of? What do you yourself think you're capable of? Because I definitely struggled with having expectations that people had of me with my grades, and it caused so much stress and anxiety within me. But that's probably the biggest thing, is not to be too stressed out about what others think of what your grades are going to be. Just know what your own expectations are of yourself.
Yeah, I think what Risha is also really important about not putting expectations on yourself, because at the end of the day, all you can do is try and do what you're capable of. Like putting those expectations on yourself and also from other people can be so damaging. And I know it's like, for example, like in class and you get a test, you're so tempted to be like, oh, what did you get to your friend? And then like you don't admit to anyone, but subconsciously you compare yourself to them. You're like, oh, is that why? Or like you with uni offers, for example, like everyone's comparing what grades they've been offered or what unis they've been offered from. But like just remember, it's your life. Like it's you as an individual this is going to affect. So only think about yourself. Like you have to think about your expectations of yourself and not even make them too high. Like just try, rather than focusing on what other people are getting or what they want you to get. Like at the end of the day, it's what you want. It's your life, it's your future.
Definitely.
I definitely agree with that.
So generally, I think some tips for just dealing with exam stress are to watch a film or a TV show, listen to a podcast or a comedian or something that you like and that enjoys you and that helps you escape almost, or read a book maybe. Avoid other stressed people. So obviously definitely talk to other people about how you're feeling, but if other people are making you feel more stressed, don't put yourself in that position. And also even just a shower or a bath can help somebody, because just taking that time out to relax yourself, or cooking or baking, and make sure that you keep things in perspective, especially like other sort of mocks are literally just doing practicing. Exams, yes, they're there to determine your future in a way. All you can do is try, like we said. But those are just kind of some general tips, but obviously different things work for different people.
Definitely. And we know the situation right now is extra stressful with COVID and everything, and the lockdowns, if there's going to be a lot of lockdown, if we're going to even do our exams. We're all going through it and we all understand. But it's important to remember that that's out of our control. That is physically out of our control. And I know it's easier said than done to not worry about things that you can't control, but focus on things that you can help. So focus on your revision and focus on making sure you're ready for that exam and not for whatever we can't help, if that makes sense.
Definitely.
So thanks everyone. This has been our podcast about exam stress. We hope it's helped all of you with especially the year 11 and year 13 mocks coming up. If you need any help with anything, please contact the safeguarding team, talk to your teachers. You shouldn't be scared of them. They're there to help and educate you, not just with your studies, but with any problems you have. But thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks.